Good evening, dear brothers and sisters. Greetings in the name of our Lord and our God, who has given us a spirit from above so that we are able to understand the words and His thoughts. Because it says, who's the man who can understand the thoughts of God? And it also says that the man who has the spirit of God is able to understand His spirit. So, if it is true that we have the spirit from God, we will be able to understand the mind of God. Now, the mind of God that we have been looking over the last week, is so compassionate. His mind is filled with love. His mind is filled with mercy, forgiveness. But yet, the world has criticized our Creator, our Maker, our King, our Lord into an evil being. Is because we as human beings, when we don't do what is evil in our sight, which is burning our own children's, yet we are made to believe that our God does that, and that's what is justice to him. That's not what justice means. Justice means bringing back the lost, giving them what is just to them, giving them the due penalty. Now, we started off last week's discussion with the hell, right? So, and we also looked into so many different avenues of what a hell could be, and we also looked into, did God create a hell that we imagined for? Well, I'm not saying that there is no hell. Neither does the Bible. The Bible clearly says there is hell, but not the hell that we were led to believe. Not a place of fire where where the souls is what is people refer to as, where the spirits is also called as, are being tortured and tormented for all eternity, forever and ever, where there is no end, where ultimately there is no end. That's what we've been led to believe. All of these doctrines, all of the doctrines of burning in fire and throwing children's in fire, it didn't originate here. It came from the ancient Greeks. Well, it came far beyond that. When the nation of Israel, when the people of Israel settled in the land of Canaan, there were about seven enemies that was surrounded by the nation of Israel. God told the people of Jews, when you enter into the promised land, ensure that you drive these Gentile nations away from you, else you will follow into their trap and you will follow their path. But these Jews, the Jewish nation, the Jewish people who came down from the Egypt, when they went into the land of Canaan, instead of driving them out, they actually had intermarriage between these nations, and that's how everything began. That's how the idol worship began. Even when we look at when people came out of Egypt, and when Moses has gone up to the Mount of Sinai, how did the people even get the knowledge of building a calf or making a calf out of gold? That's because in Egypt, one of the gods that they worshipped was a calf. And that's the idea that they bought along with them when they came out of Egypt. So this idea of that idol was stuck with them for a very, very long time. It was not eradicated until they were banished away from the land. Now, the same thing goes even for the teaching of a place, a hidden place, a place under the deep earth, where there is a place that is specially prepared to torture people, specially prepared to torture souls. That's what it's called as. But we know what a soul is. Soul is human being. That's the Bible very beautifully identifies human beings as a living soul. What we in scientifically tell human beings is called as living soul in the Bible. And what we call as breath and oxygen is called as spirit. God gave us the spirit, his spirit, the power to breathe to us. Now, when the leaders of the church, what exactly happened is, today we'll look at a very small history and we'll straight away go into the Old Testament. So, how did this doctrine enter into the church? When when Jesus was there. So let's say Jesus himself has spoken a lot of parables saying that you will go to hell. We will touch base upon that. But after the time of Jesus came Paul, then came Peter, Paul, all of the apostles, and until John, the church was very well controlled. And at point when, even when Paul was there, even when John was there, it was time when they did not permit John inside the church. We saw this in the most holy faith. John writes in his letter saying that when I go into the church, They said that John should not enter, and if he comes in, you too will have to leave the church. So at that point in time itself, I'm saying, when the apostles were alive, at that point itself, false doctrines and false prophets started entering into the church. So let's imagine 2000 years from then, what would be the condition and what would be the state of the true church? What would be the teachings and doctrines? Will there be anything left? Which is why Jesus said, when the Son of Man returns to the earth, will he ever find faith? He puts a question. Will I ever find faith? He's asking, which means he knows the answer to it. He'll not be able to find the most holy faith. Well, people will have faith, but on what? Is that faith, the house of faith, being built on the foundations and teachings of the holy prophets and Christ, or it's just being built upon sand and as a house of clay? So we all have faith, but on what faith? So after the demise of the apostles and all of them, when they went to rest, it was a period of persecution to the Christians. First came the Romans, when the Romans started to persecute Christians, and then the Romans kept on, they kept persecuting Christians for almost 3 centuries, until the time when King Constantine comes over, and then he defeats Rome, takes over Rome, he converts himself into Christianity, and that's when everything began, which is the false doctrines, and all the doctrines of the Greeks started to enter into Christianity. And then came a great dark age. It's called in history as dark ages, where people were not allowed to read Bible. People were not allowed to even discuss about anything related to scriptures. If they did, they were arrested and thrown, not by the Romans, by Christians themselves, by popes. That was a time of dark ages. And that lasted until 1799, just few centuries ago, when King Napoleon comes and he arrests one of the Pope and drags him to prison. And after almost during the French Revolution. So that was the time of dark ages. So all these stories and man-made doctrines started to enter the Bible, and during these dark ages. And one of those man-made stories is a place where God built to torture people, to kill, to go and make them suffer for everything that they've paid. They literally use this as a tool. I'll give you an example. I won't say an example, it's an incident. I'll give you an incident before we start. So an incident that occurred is, if we look at in Rome today, we have St. Peter's Square, and then we have a lot of synagogues and temples and churches being built. But when we look back into the history of how these were being built, okay, go and check on these facts for today, how these were built. The Romans, that's the Roman church, came up with a theory, or came up with a doctrine, saying that every relative and every cousin and every person in your family who has died, their souls have not reached heaven. Their souls are waiting in purgatory, and they're being tortured day and night. And they also they wrote this line. This was one of the 95 theses, out of the 95 theses which Martin Luther wrote and nailed it on the church at Wittenberg, Germany. This was one of the points that he noted. He said that the papacy have been fooling us. So one of the major fact that they said and preached is, as the coins. So they came by streets and they started proclaiming this. The souls of your family members are in purgatory, and all you have to do is you'll have to drop a coin into this box. When the noise or when the sound of the coins are being heard in this box, the souls in the prisons will be released. This is the statement that they made, and people were led to believe. People believed because they, at that point in time, the papacy government, the Christian papacy government, was like a king. They were a rulership, and everyone looked upon them. They said that we are the church of on earth, in heaven, and under the heaven as well. God has given all authority, and many statements. So they believed and trusted them. And that's when all of these stories of man-made doctrines of soul being tortured in a place of fire, everything came up. And because of their doctrine, many Bible verses were altered. Many Bible verses were changed. Give you a deep. I can we can look at proofs. Say for instances, many verses in the Bible were added, and many verses in the Bible were removed, which is why when you look at King James version and when you look at the revised King James version, you will find a lot of difference. You'll find verses taken away because, and if you've bought the Bible today with footnotes, in the footnotes you can see that they would have mentioned for certain verses. Say for instance, when in our the Lord's Prayer, in Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, and at the end there's a verse which there's a line which says, "Yours is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever." If you have footnotes in the Bible, you can see that the footnotes would say these verses or these words were not found in the original manuscripts. They were added later on. So many such verses were added into the Bible, and many corrections were made to fit their belief, to fit their teaching. And one of that is hell. So today, what we're looking at is we're looking into the Old Testament of hell. What does the Bible talk about hell in the Old Testament? Well, we know the Old Testament was written in a language not English, but in Hebrew. And in Hebrews, everywhere where you find a hell in the Old Testament, the Hebrew word for it is called Sheol. There's only one word in Hebrew, but of course, many words in English, but I'm sorry, in Greek, but in Hebrew, it was only Sheol. So, Sheol. Now, let's look at Sheol. What is Sheol? Let's straight away jump into one of the verse. We'll start from the book of Job, chapter 14, verses 13. This is out of the many occurrences of the word Sheol, this is one of the place that I would want you to carefully examine with me today. So what Job is saying, when Job is he's saying that, oh God, why don't you hide me into the grave, hide me into the grave and keep me in secret until all the wrath that is on me will pass, and until the time that you have set, until the time of restitution comes. Please put me in Sheol, or put me in grave. I've on the screen right now, you will see many different translations. I've put screenshots of it. So if you look at the New International Version, they have translated it as grave. The New Living Translation is grave. But if you look at the ESV, the English Standard Version, they have mentioned the original Hebrew word as Sheol. They didn't translate the word. They just put it as Sheol. Even if you look at the Berean Bible, it's Sheol. King James is grave, New King James is grave, American Standard Bible is Sheol. So certain translators did not want to translate the word Sheol into English. They said, okay, Sheol, we'll just leave it as Sheol, because the word Sheol had many different English translation names. The word Sheol in Hebrew, when you have to translate it in English, it gave three options. You can either translate it as grave, you can translate it as hell, you can also translate it as pit. They had three choices to choose from, and each translators, they chose the choice of their faith, of their belief. Now let me show you another very good example. Now look, when we look at Job, right now we are looking at Job chapter 14 verses 13. Job is praying to God and saying, oh God, please hide me in Sheol. Very simple. Please hide me in Sheol. We'll not look at the meaning, just hide me in Sheol. The same word, when it is being used on the wicked person, when the same word is being used on the wicked person, the same Sheol is then being translated into hell. Now you also look at another screenshot here. The New International Version is translated as the wicked go down to the realm of the dead. They put it as the realm of the dead. But the NLT, very clearly they made the translation saying that the wicked will go down to grave, which means here what we see, grave. When Job is praying, oh God, let me go to grave, hide me in grave. And also what Psalms, the writer Psalms is saying, the book Psalms is also saying that the wicked will go to grave. The wicked will go to the dead. The place of the dead where everyone is sleeping today is called grave. But the King James Version, they translated into hell. Why did it happen? Why did KJV alone translate it into hell when the rest of the translators knew that it's grave and it is dead and it is Sheol? Why then King James Version came into hell? Because this one Such incidents made all Christian believers today to believe that there is a place called hell where everyone will go and suffer for it, because there are many verses spread across. One place says the wicked goes to hell. The other place, Jesus says that there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, which we will look at. And then Jesus says the fire will not end, the worms will not die. And then he gives a lot of illustration, and he says there will be burning of fire, and there will be weeping forever and ever. The flames will keep going up forever and ever. So all of these verses, they just bought it together and they built the doctrine of hell. But these were all different parts of the speeches. Like we said last week, we will fine comb every single verse and take them out, and we will study every verse that pertains to the word, to the doctrine of hell. Now what had happened is, dear brothers and sisters, if you're paying close attention to me, watch you could watch me, just give you an illustration. There was a Hebrew Bible, and there was the Greek, the New Testament Greek and the Old Testament Hebrew. During the time of the papacies, the only permitted language to translate these two versions was in the language of the Latin. They were only permitted to translate in the Latin edition. The translators were not permitted to translate in any other edition. If the translation occurred in any other language, they will be burnt at stake. That was the punishment, burnt at stake, if you translate the Bible. Now, in the in Catholic, in the Roman Church, there was a very famous translator called Jerome, and he's the one who came up with what is today called as the Latin Vulgate. You can search for that. It's one of the manuscripts. Now we'll go to the Latin Vulgate in just a minute. While you're watching this tree, you see the tree. This is the Bible translated trees. Today we have about 900 plus translations available in the Bible. 900 different translations of biblical Bibles that we have. So in 1524, in 1524, first William Tyndale, he comes out with the version. He translates parts of it, and then everyone starts translating during the 15th century. But in 16th century became the great revolution when King James, he comes in, he calls up all the people who were translators to the Pope in the earlier stages, and then he assembles and gathers a crew of about 70 people, and then he translates the King James version. That's when most of the other translations follow today. Yeah, all the other languages, whatever languages that you read today, they all follow majority the King James version. Now the King James version was translated using the Latin Vulgate that was used by the Roman edition, which was used by the Roman Church. The Roman Church used the Latin Vulgate by Jerome to translate Bibles in Latin, to translate Bible from Hebrew and Greek to Latin. Now, this was the same manuscript that was used to translate the Bible into English by King James. Now, when he did this, he copied over all the errors that the Roman Church made, and one of that was the doctrine of hell, which is why you see, dear brothers and sisters, that in many new translations, they don't use the word hell. They simply know it's Sheol, they put it as Sheol. Or if they would like to translate, they put it as grave, or they say it's dead. They made it very plain and simple. We Christians, since we've been living for the last 200 years, soaked in this doctrine of hell, we're made to believe that this is what it is. Now let's look at what Sheol is. What is the meaning of Sheol? Now Sheol, Job says, let's look at two verses to understand it very clearly. Job says, what is Sheol? Job says, oh God, let me go down to Sheol, hide me in Sheol, and let me make my house in Sheol. The place is going to be dark, and I will stay there until the time you call me again. Until the time you call me again. Dear brothers and sisters, I'm not sure if it is too confusing for you, but if it is, please let me know. I'm going to stop here for just one quick second. Okay, no? Well, so we'll find out what Sheol is. Job says, oh God, send me to Sheol. The place is going to be dark. Let me make my home as Sheol. I'm going to stay there until the time you wake me up, I will be there in Sheol. Right? Now, in very interesting, in Isaiah chapter 38, verses 18, there is a reoccurrence of the word Sheol three times. Not just Sheol, but a Greek and a combination of Hebrew and Greek. Now, when you look at the verse here, Isaiah 38:18, it says, "For the grave cannot praise thee, death cannot celebrate thee, and they who go down into the pit cannot hope for truth." Now, all this is single meaning. That's why I said grave, death, pit, hell, everything was reflecting Sheol. I've also put the multiple translations on the screen here. So you look at it, the first word grave, it's called Sheol. So Sheol is nothing other than grave, and pit is nothing other than Hades. Hades in the Greek word, which is again Sheol, which is again Greek, which is again grave. To make it very simple, dear brothers and sisters, I'll just break the ice. We'll make it very, very simple. What is Sheol? Job says, "Oh Lord, if I hope," he says, this is the first piece that we'll put into the puzzle. Job says, "God, send me to Sheol. I will make my house in Sheol." He says, "If I hope for Sheol as my house, if I make my bed in darkness." Let's know this word verse very carefully. He says Sheol is dark. But hold on a second. Was I not taught that Sheol or hell is filled with fire? And if hell is filled with fire, how they shouldn't there be light in hell? Correct me if I'm wrong, dear brothers and sisters. Well, I was taught from my childhood, um, there's fire in hell. And if there is fire, where there is fire, there is light, because you have flames. And if there is fire in hell, why is Job saying that it's going to be dark? Shouldn't Job be saying that, "Oh God, let me go to Sheol, hell, and there's going to be light"? But instead, he says, "If I hope for Sheol as my house, if I make my bed in darkness," he's saying, "Let me go to the dark, and I'm going to be there until the day you call me," which is what we saw in the previous words also. He says, "Until the day you call me, until the time comes, let me be there in Sheol." Even in Psalms, the same Psalms 31:17, he says, "Oh Lord, let me not be put to shame, for I call upon you. Let the wicked be put to shame. Let them go silently to Sheol." Hang on a second. I have another question. Wouldn't people be screaming and shouting in hell? That's what hell was supposed to be, right? Where voices are heard. And I've seen a lot of YouTube videos, and there's a lot of books published today. I've been to the Bible Society here in India very recently to pick up some Bibles. More than Bibles, I'm saying more than Bibles, I found books. And the majority of the books were like the dream about hell, the visit to hell, the cry in hell, the call of hell. Everything was related to saying that people were affirming that I had a dream, I heard voices. But what does the Bible say? Psalm is saying, "Let the wicked be put to shame. Let them go silently to Sheol." Sheol is a place where they are going to remain silent. Then how can there be cry? How can there be voices that are heard?
Yeah, I mean there is no hell.
What's the so you look at what people are saying and thinking and writing, and it's absolutely opposed to what the Bible is saying. Job says, "Oh God, let me put my bed in Sheol. It's going to be dark. I will stay there, I will make that as my house until the day you call me. I will still be there." Psalms is saying that, "Let the wicked go to Sheol, and they will be in silent. Let them go silently into Sheol." So there is silence in Sheol. And then also the same Psalms in 115:17, he says, the dead praise not the Lord, neither that they go down into silence. The dead here is again Sheol, which means in Sheol, there is going to be silence. Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verses 10. He also says the same thing. "Whatever your hand finds to do, let it do it with your might. For there is no work or thought or wisdom in Sheol." In Sheol, you cannot think. In Sheol, there is no wisdom. In Sheol, there is no knowledge. There is no work. And he says, "To which you are going," which means everyone is going to go to Sheol. The wise man here is not saying that only the wicked is going. He's talking about everyone, and he talks about the youth in the next preceding chapter. So he's talking about everyone. You go to Sheol, and he says in Sheol you cannot think. So if I cannot think in Sheol, how can people think? How can people feel pain? Because pain is felt by our brain, and brain exists only in the fleshly body, and brain needs blood to be pumped out. If then when people are in hell, and the wise man here says, Solomon here says that there is no knowledge, there is no wisdom, forget about those things. He says there is no thought. Thought comes from the brain, from memories. And if there is no thought, how will I feel pain? If I don't feel pain, then how are people screaming saying help me? A very fiction. These are fiction. Bible is putting things very clearly. Most important thing is the father of Israel. When I say the father of Israel, the father of the nation of Israel, who was again Israel, called as, later named as Israel, but then Jacob, right? We all know about Jacob. So Jacob loved his son very much. And one of the sons that he loved the most was Joseph. Now, Joseph was his 11 brothers, or his 11 sons. They come back and they report into Jacob and say that a wild beast has somehow hunted your son, and he's no more, he's dead. We only found this piece of cloth of his which is soaked in blood. Now look at what Jacob says. Jacob prays, and he says Genesis chapter 37-35, he says, and all his sons and daughters came to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted. And Jacob said these verses. He said, no, he said, don't comfort me. And he was crying, and he said, let me also go down to Sheol to my son. Because when his son is dead, where is he going to go? He's going to go to the Sheol, which is grave, which is hell, which is pit. It's all the same. It's all the same meaning. So, and he says, let me also go to Sheol. Why didn't the translator KJV, I won't say KJV, but that will be too rude. But they didn't use the word hell here, because if it is a good person, they use the word Sheol or use the word grave or pit. If it is talking about the wicked, I'm only specifically talking about the Old Testament. We haven't gone into the New Testament yet, because the New Testament is when people got a lot confused, a lot confused. We'll try and open one parable today, if time permits. So, only the Old Testament. When it is talking about the wicked people, like in Psalms 9:17, it says the wicked shall go to hell, because I have a preconceived thinking and a preconceived teaching that all the good people will go to heaven, all the bad people will go to hell. Because of that, when I am translating the Bible, I know the wicked will go to hell. So I have options. Sheol can be grave, can be pit, can be hell. Oh, hell is a place to burn. Let me put it as hell. When I'm translating for Jacob, oh, Jacob is a good person, God liked him, I cannot put it as hell. Let me put it as grave. You see, this is exactly what has happened. And this is why today we are being made to believe a lie about our Father, a lie about our Creator, our Maker, our Lord, our King. It's absolutely insane. Let's break this down. Job says it's dark. Job says, oh God, send me to Sheol. Let me go there and make my house in Sheol. I will stay there until the time you wake me up, until you resurrect me back to life. Sheol is going to be dark. There is no thought in Sheol. Everyone is going to remain silent in Sheol. It is the place of the dead. What is Sheol then? It's very simple. It is a place when people are buried after they are dead. Absolutely straightforward. Sheol is not a place where there is burning, where the people are thrown into a pot of fire and a burning oil to torture them. It is simply a state of being dead. I'll ask you a simple question, dear brothers and sisters. In the Bible, I definitely I want to hear this from you. In the Bible, in the Old Testament, who do you think was the most wicked city? The wicked city in the Old Testament, the most wicked city that God didn't like them. And he described
Babylon.
he
Babylon,
described
brother.
Babylon was It was not a wicked city, but the
Sodom
king
and
was.
Gomorrah.
There you go. Sodom and Gomorrah was the most wicked city. God did not spare them. They were all burnt. So let's take this as a doctrine of hell. Let's for a minute believe the doctrine of hell is true. Shall we? For a minute, for a minute, let's believe that the doctrine of hell is true. Now, what does the doctrine of hell say? The doctrine of hell says that once a person goes to hell, there is no coming back. They will have to be there in hell and burn for all eternity. That's the doctrine of hell. That's what its teachings are. They cannot come back. They are stuck in all eternity. They will have to burn, burn, and burn. Okay. If that is true, then where would have been the people of Sodom and Gomorrah gone? They did everything that is evil and wicked in the sight of God. In fact, they wanted to do the same evil to the angels who visited them. So, where would they have been gone? Naturally to hell, if there is a place called hell. And if someone goes to hell, is there returning back? Can they return back from hell? The doctrine of hell says no. Once you're in hell, you're done. Your all eternity will be spent in hell. If that is true, the Bible, one verse of the Bible can break the entire doctrine of hell, because the people of Sodom and Gomorrah will raise back to life. I am not telling this. The Bible is telling this. Ezekiel chapter 16, verses 55 says, and your sisters, Sodom, with her daughter, and Samaria, with her daughters, will return to their former state. You and your daughters will also return to your former state. To your former state, they will return back. If they are in hell, how can they return back? Because the doctrine of hell says they cannot return back. If so, which means they are not in hell. And if a worst country and a worst city, a wicked city which God intervened and destroyed, is not in hell, then why are Christians today led to believe that there is hell? It's being used as a tool, dear brothers and sisters. I don't know how much of it is in your place that you are at, but at least to the extent of the knowledge and experience that I have seen and visited today, many preachers, very many preachers, preach saying that if you do not give tithe to the church, you will be thrown into hell. I've heard this. Many YouTube sermons as well, many live sermons. They've been preaching this. If you don't give your tithe, God is going to send you to hell. What is this? Is a This entire universe is God's. Let's look at the. If you look at the, I think the planet of Jupiter. I think it's Jupiter. The planet of Jupiter. What do we get as rain on Earth? We get water as rains on Earth. But the planet Jupiter, it rains diamonds. It rains diamonds. If it rains, it does not rain water. It rains diamonds. There's a richest. The entire universe is his. And you think it's for a tithe he's looking to throw to people, to hell, to burn? And what is the point? What God are we serving? We are not serving a God who is. Last week we read about this in Jeremiah. He says that this throwing into the fire is not even come into my heart. He said, I have not even thought about this. But we are thinking about this and saying, oh God, you are the one who will do this. He's saying, I have not even thought about this. This has not even occurred into my mind. That's the God we are serving, not the God which man has made. Absolutely wickedness. Because God, what man has done is, whatever his thoughts are, he designs God like that. That's how many idols came. Whatever he believes that God looks like, he makes it into a statue, an idol, and then he worships that. We did the same thing in Christianity. Whatever intentions we had and came from other Gentiles, specifically the Greeks, we started reflecting upon that, and we thought we were led to believe, oh, this is what God is. And the most cruel thing is thinking that God himself is cruel. He's saying Sodom and Gomorrah is coming back to life. If that was the case, and if hell existed, then why didn't God tell our Adam, our ancestor Adam, that Adam, the day you eat the fruit and you disobey me, you will die and go to hell? Why didn't he make that statement? I've thought about this very, very much. And please think about this. If God is a God who's just. He's being very, very plain. He does not hide things from his own people, from his own children. So I don't believe that God has hidden anything from Adam. It was very plain to Adam, and he spoke to Adam as a friend. They used to walk in the evening breeze, right? So God never made any statement saying that, Adam, if you disobey me, then I'm going to send you to hell where you will be burnt in fire. If he had said that, then Adam would have known, oh, I'm going to go to fire. But Adam knew it was a state of being dead. And this is exactly what he said. From dust you were taken, you will return to dust. And today, everyone is returning to dust. Everyone returns to the dust, which is what we read in the chapter of soul, Ezekiel chapter 18, verses 420. We also saw that, right? Every soul belongs to me, and the soul that sins shall die. God didn't say the soul, the man, the human being. That's what is referred as soul here. The soul that sins will go to hell. He should have said that. He never made that statement. He said that the ultimate punishment, even today you look at the law of the land, any land for that matter, the ultimate capital punishment in any country is death penalty. That's the highest punishment. How did man get this knowledge? This is not a knowledge, this is not a judgment by man, because this is a judgment given by God, and we learned from him the highest capital punishment is dead. And that is why today everyone dies. And which is why Paul also says in Romans 6:23, right? The wages for sin is death. He makes it very plain and clear. It's death. It's people are going to go to Sheol. Sheol means grave. You can say grave. You can call it as hell. You can call it as pit. Call it whatever. But it's a place of just being dead. The wages of sin is dead, and everyone today is facing death. We saw so many chapters and so many verses after verses, that every place that we look into where it talks about grave, some of the verses that is in front of you today is Job 14:10. You have 7 verses, chapter 7, 9, 10, Ecclesiastes, Psalms, Genesis. All of it very clearly says man will return back to the dust, and he will go down to the grave. And grave is the word in the Old Testament used as Sheol, and the same Sheol, when being applied to the children of God, is being translated as grave, and when being applied to the wicked is translated as hell. But both hell and grave are the same meaning, which is why if you look at the old native English speakers, even if you look at, if we happen to meet any of the old native English speakers, the one statement that they used to make is, I would go to hell, go to hell. What is the meaning, go to hell? Go to hell is go and, go to the grave. They used to call, I'll need to hell my potatoes. During the farmers used these slangs. The farmers used the slang in the olden times. When they go to the field, they will say, hell your potatoes. Means bury your potatoes, hell your corn, bury your corn. Go to hell, go and get buried, go to the dead. It was so simple. But the doctrines of the Greeks, the doctrine of the devil to be as simple, which Paul says in future time, people will not, they will have itching ears to hear the truth, and they will go after seducing spirit, after the doctrines of devil, because devil is the one that said, you shall not die. Today man is led to believe that, oh, death is just a temporary state of being dead, but after my death I am going to go to hell, I'm going to go to heaven, I'm going to roam around this earth, I'm going to be a free soul. It's because the teaching of the devil, it said that you shall not die. And today everyone believes that I will not die. Death is only to my body, but not to me. I'm going to be alive somewhere else. It's so we've gone past drinking milk, dear brothers and sisters. That's what Paul says. If you continue to keep drinking milk, when will you become teachers, he asks us. We've gone that stage, we've passed that stage. We are now eating solid food, solid milk, solid food, solid meat in the due season, and we'll need to digest this. If a place of hell was true, being tortured is true, we've gone through this again before itself. When Jesus comes in, it's been 3 days. Jesus out there, he's been preaching. He's somewhere in the wilderness, And then he hears the message that his dear friend Lazarus has been departed. His disciples come and tell Jesus. Jesus says, no, he's only sleeping. He compares death to sleep. He's been sleeping. So it's 3 days past. It's the fourth day that Jesus comes and arrives at the situation. Now, when a man dies, the first 30 minutes, the brain collapses. The next 30 minutes, the brain is completely, at least it's begun to decay, because there's no blood that goes into our brain. And the brain is the most, or rather, the first most important organ that starts to decay without blood consistency, without the blood being flown to the brain. 30 minutes, that's all. Their brain dead. They, even if the person gets back to life, they are a vegetable because the brain is dead. But Jesus here comes after 4 days, and he wakes up Lazarus. As why didn't Lazarus come out and say that, oh Jesus, thank you for resurrecting me back to life. I was suffering in hell. Oh Jesus, why did you resurrect me? I was so happily in heaven. I was able to see the angels. He just came out knowing nothing. He was sleeping for 4 days. And Jesus refers death to the condition of sleep. Because when we hear his voice, all the dead will come out of where? John says, right? There will be a time when everyone in the grave will hear his voice and come out. Not from the word grave over there was Hades, which was later put as hell as well. We'll go to the New Testament. But people from the grave will all come back to life, not from underneath where they are in boiling and they're being tortured in flames and fire and whips and whatnot. What imaginary situation man has gone into, all depths of imaginations possible. But it looks from the biblical perspective, it looks the wisdom of man is foolishness, right? All these things were wisdom of man. It's foolishness to God. And he made it very plain open. And that is why it says, oh God, you've hidden these wise things. You've hidden their secrets from the people who have thought them to be wise and revealed to babes. We are babies today. We've been drinking milk and now we've grown up and we are consuming a little bit of meat. We are still babies to him. And he's revealing these things to us. And Lazarus just comes out of his house from his as a sleep. But yet, in the New Testament, still Jesus says this, right? He says that it's better for you to get into the kingdom of heaven with one hand than to go with two hands into hell, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, where fire does not quench, where there will be worms all over, and you will be crying forever and ever. He tells this. So, what does that mean? Because Jesus himself has said this. We will get to this because this is the most important and this is the conclusion. When we go here, we will hit the conclusion. The Old Testament is covered, dear brothers and sisters. The hell of the Old Testament is covered. I would like to go to the New Testament, but just before we leap into the New Testament, I'm going to give you a brief stop here. The doctrine of hell is one of the biggest stone or barricade or a barrier that we will need to break to go to the next level, because this gives us a complete understanding of who God is and who God is not, and who not God is. We were led to believe that. I'm going to give a brief stop here, and I would like you all to ask questions, and let us have an open interaction session today. All the weeks, it's been an hour that I spend and you also spend with me. I talk, you listen, and at the end of the session we give about 10 minutes. People will have to leave, some stay back, we discuss most important things, we discuss important points, and then people who've left, they're left over, they don't know. So for this week, I'm going to stop with the hell over here in the Old Testament, because when we hit New Testament, it's a long list. New Testament is where we need to see in detail. Old Testament is quite easy because there's only one word, Sheol. So I will stop here and let's discuss. Let's have our thoughts. Let's put together. We can go one by one, dear brothers and sisters. Okay, first on my list today, I have Sister Punita Kumar. That's what I see in my Zoom chat. Let's go one by one. Unless we discuss, I will be under a I will be under an assumption that you have understood. But let's discuss. Let me also understand your view, uh, let me also understand how much of the truth that has gone into y'all, so that I can also make my next step forward into the New Testament. Because when we go to the New Testament, we're going to go even to the minute and lot of details. Yes, Sister Sharon.
You mean in this lesson or in your next lesson?
We can start off a little bit today itself, but just before I move to the New Testament, I want to give about 5-10 minutes to discuss this whole subject of the hell.
Okay. You know, I read some biography of some people, or rather their biography and what they think of hell. Some of them, well-known people, they believe that after death is nothing. They will be nothing already, which is actually a contradiction to what the scripture says. So sometimes I feel, yes, hell. I believe in hell. I believe it's real, and unbeliever all goes there, and that's why there's urgency for the gospel to be preached. But sometimes something is very hard to reach people, because they will tell you, you got your religion, I got my religion, you don't disturb me and I don't disturb you. That kind of attitude. So sometimes it's very hard to reach people. That's my experience.
Yes, sister. So the urgency to preach the gospel is it's a different view. It's not because people will go to hell. It's because Jesus says his disciples go ahead and ask him, Lord, how is please give us a signal. That's what they call it as. Please give us a sign, a signal of your coming. Then he gives them the complete list of signs, and then he says, until this good news is preached to the ends of this earth, that day will not come. So, for the kingdom of Christ to be established on this earth, the gospel will have to be preached. And that's the urgency. So that his kingdom, which we all pray, will come here on earth. In simple, hell is not a place where God sends us to be burnt and tortured for all eternity. Hell is simply a grave, is simply a grave. That is what the Old Testament talks about. Now let's move into the New Testament if there are no questions.
Brother, already you told wicked peoples only go to hell, right?
No. In the book of Psalms, it says, the wicked shall go down to Sheol. And in King James, they translated Sheol as hell. But when you look at all the other translators, they simply put that as grave. And then we, as Christians, were made to believe that the wicked will go to hell, a place of burning sulfur. Hell is not a place of burning sulfur.
Brother Stephen.
Yes, brother.
No, I'm just asking. Sheol refer to this name like hell, grave. Isn't it this the Hebrew words? Sheol.
The Hebrew word Sheol
Yeah,
means
Sheol. Also, yeah, hell. Before this English word come hell or grave lah. This a long time ago, people it's called a Sheol, isn't it?
It is still called Sheol in Hebrews. Still called Sheol. But when we are translating it into English, now the same word Sheol, when it is getting translated into English, in the English dictionary has 3 options to choose from. You can either choose grave, which we know what the meaning is. We can either choose pit. We all know what pit is, right? It's just a pit, a small hole in the ground. We can also choose hell. Hell is also a pit. Hell is also a grave. But what had happened in the Christian realm is that we were taught that hell is a place where there is burning fire. And because of that,
it's a place for punishment, yeah. Punishment.
We were taught that it's a place of punishment where everyone goes and burns for all eternity. But hell simply means grave. Hell simply means pit. Hell is nothing but it's a graveyard. Graveyard is what is called as hell. Sister, you speak Tamil, right, sister?
பிரதர் எனக்கு இன்னுமே கன்ஃபியூஸ்டா இருக்கு
I'll make it very simple, sister, for you. I'll translate this in Tamil for you. Sheol in Hebrew, in Tamil it is Naragam. Correctingla? It is called Naragam in Tamil. Naragam mean அப்படின்னா
பாதாளம் என்னது பிரதர்
பாதாளமும் சரி நரகமும் சரி ஒரே ஒரு வார்த்தை தான். Dear brothers and sisters, kindly excuse me for 1 minute. I'm going to use the Tamil language to help sister with what Sheol is. பாதாளம் நரகம் இது ரெண்டுத்தையும் பிரிச்சுட்டா ஈஸி ஆயிடும். பாதத்து கீழ் உள்ள ஆழம் பாதாளம். பாதத்து கீழ் உள்ள ஆழம் பாதாளம். பாதத்து கீழ் இருக்கிற ஆழம் எதுங்க? கல்லறை. கல்லறைனா கூட கல்லால் செய்யப்பட்ட அறத்த கல்லறை. நரகம் கூட யோசிச்சு பாருங்க. நர அகம், நர மனுஷன் அகமாக போற இடம் தான் நரகம். அப்படின்னா நர மனுஷன் வந்துட்டு மாமிசமான மனுஷன். அவனு ஒரு அகம்னும் போது ஒரு இருட்டு வீட்டுக்குள்ள போற இடம் நரகம்னு அப்படித்தான் வந்துச்சு. அதைத்தான் நீங்க இப்ப கூட தமிழ் அகராதியை எடுத்து படிச்சீங்கன்னா நரகம்ன்றதுக்கு என்னத்தான் சொல்லியிருக்குவாங்கன்னா பாதத்து கீழ் உள்ள ஆழம் தான் போட்டிருக்கும். பட் இன் கிறிஸ்டியானிட்டி they made us believe it is a place with burning pot of fire. So does that clear for you?
தமிழ் ரொம்ப அழகா சொல்றீங்க பிரதர்.
It's more easy, sister, and it becomes even more clear in Tamil. Okay, so that's what on the slide here you see. The wicked shall go down to Sheol, and the same thing in KJV is the wicked shall go down to hell. And the
Brother
same
Stephen,
thing is yes,
brother. Yeah, brother Stephen. Maybe I think for clarity to the group here, right? We can actually eradicate this belief that hell exists when we actually turn to the prophecy in the book of Psalms. I think you may have brought this up. I'm sorry, but maybe just for the sake of to repeat the whole concept again. In Psalm 16:10, right, we know that this is a prophecy pertaining to Jesus Christ. That it says that, "For thou wilt not leave my soul in hell, neither wilt thou suffer thy Holy One to see corruption." So if this is a prophecy of Jesus Christ, and the fact that Jesus Christ was the sinless Lamb of God, how could he have gone to hell, right? So this will totally eradicate the view of hell to anybody who believes that the concept of hell actually does exist.
Absolutely, so true.
Yeah,
so true. Because Jesus would not have gone into hell to
he would not have gone into hell.
True.
Yeah.
True. The brothers and sisters, please make a note of a very, very important point that our dear brother brought up. It's a prophecy about Jesus Christ where it says in the book of Psalms chapter 16 verses 10, it's a prophecy on Jesus. It says, "For you will not leave my soul among the dead." And there is a footnotes for verse 10 which says the Holy One, and or you will allow your Holy One to rot in hell, Sheol, grave. So it's very clear and very plain according to the Old Testament. It's according to the Bible, but we've bifurcated the Old Testament for now. It's very clear in the Bible that hell is not a place where people are being sent to be punished and tortured. Hell simply means grave. Hell simply means grave. That's, if you all have any questions on this subject, please at any point in time stop me, dear brothers and sisters. Now we'll quickly jump into one of the most important thing in the New Testament. Just before we touch on that point, in the New Testament, let's look at what Jesus said, right? Now Jesus has there was a time when everyone is sitting and Jesus comes here and Jesus talks about hell straight away. In Mark chapter 9 it starts off. So Jesus says that if a person, he starts off by saying, if your right arm causes you to sin, it's better you cut off your right arm and throw it away versus having two hands to go into hell. It's better for you to come to one hand, with one hand, to the kingdom of heaven. Now let's take this literally. Let's take this as a literal sense. There's a person whose right hand caused him to sin. So according to Jesus, now we follow Jesus. Now Jesus says, cut off your right hand. How many times have I cut off my right hand? Not even once. Okay, let me take this as an assumption and as an example, saying that I am following Jesus 100%. According to Jesus, he says, if my right hand causes me to sin, cut it off. So today, my right hand is causing me to sin. What should I do? I cut it off. I chopped it off. Now there's one, I'm left with only one arm right now. I'm only left with one left arm. Will this left arm keep quiet? Will this not sin after a month, after a day, after a week? It will obviously sin. So then what will I have to do? I will also have to cut both my arms away. Now I've lost both my arms. And then Jesus says, it's better for you to cut off your one leg versus having two legs to come into the kingdom of heaven. Now, will my arms have caused me to sin already? Will my legs keep quiet? Will my legs remain silent? Absolutely not. They will also start to sin because my legs are pulling me to sin. So, according to Christ, what will I now have to do? I cut off my limb. Will my other leg keep quiet? Will that remain silent? No. I that will also go to sin. I'll have to cut it off. Now only my body is left over. Then Jesus went to the next extreme. He said that if one eye causes you to sin, if your right eye causes you to sin, pluck it off. Will my hands itself have sinned? Now will my eyes remain silent? Absolutely not. I should pluck it off. I should in fact pluck both my eyes. Now just having this piece of the body that you see on your screen, what will I do going to the kingdom of God and serving there? Can I even serve God with just this leftover? Then what did Christ mean when he said that cut off your hand, cut off your limb, and snatch off your eyes? It's better for you to do it that way. Otherwise, you will be thrown into hell. The word hell used here in this gospel is called Gehenna. And about Gehenna, we will have to continue the next week, because Gehenna is again a deep subject of its own, which we will go into. The next week is purely into the New Testament. We are going to touch base on a lot of parables. We will pull out a lot of parables, because in one instance, Jesus talks about the parable of a man who comes to the wedding feast. So he comes with the wedding, he comes into the wedding feast, and then the owner of that feast comes passing by. They find this man who does not have his wedding garment on. Then he calls his servant. He asks him, dear friend, where is your wedding garment? That man is silent. Then he calls his servant. He binds his hand and binds his feet and throws him into outer darkness where there is weeping and gnashing of teeth. Now this piece is then picked up and put into hell. Wherever, what the preachers also did is, wherever they found weeping, gnashing, fire, they all collected that and they all put it to one doctrine called the hell, and made it as a nice round snowball and presented it to us like a big jewel, saying in Christianity, if you don't do this, God is going to send you to this place. And every verse that we are seeing today will break that teaching alone, because God never had an intention to create a place to send man to be tortured there for all eternity. Very simple question, dear brothers and sisters. I am a person in flesh, and this flesh is going to go down to grave. My soul, I don't have a soul because I am the soul, right? We saw that already. We already established that man is the living soul. So soul is also dead, which means when I die, soul is also dead. The spirit, the breath that I breathe is returning back to God. Now, which part of me is going to hell to suffer? My flesh is in my flesh and my soul. The soul is called flesh. That's it. My flesh goes down to the grave. My spirit goes to God. Then which part of me is going to go to hell and suffer? No answers. Because there is nothing. You might have a question. Then what about the people who does all the wickedness? Will they ever not be punished? The Bible clearly says that they will be punished. But the question is the punishment a burning pot of oil? No, that's not the punishment. All people who sinneth against God can never go unpunished. That's reserved for them. But this is not what God created for man. Until next week, we will go ahead and meditate upon the New Testament places of where hell is written. I would like, dear brothers and sisters, to do a help to your own self. Please make more study over the week. That if you could make a study of hell does exist and bring up verses, let us discuss. That'll make more things clear on your side. For everyone who believes today, who've joined us today on the Zoom call, for everyone who believes that hell is a place and it literally exists, kindly bring the biblical verses. You have a week. Kindly get forward the biblical verses. Let us discuss on these verses and let us understand what those verses mean. If you're correct, I will stand corrected, and I like to correct myself. I encourage dear brothers and sisters to take this opportunity for the next 1 week and bring out any verses that you feel is definitely going to say and prove that hell exists. Because next week in the New Testament, we will pull out all the verses which Jesus himself has spoken about hell. I give thanks to God who's given us this opportunity and this time and the breath of life for us all to live, survive yet another week and meditate upon his characters, ever loving, merciful, forgiving, and just God. Meditate upon his characters and to know who truly he is. Let us all continue in the same accordance as members of the body of Christ in the coming weeks also. And let us learn and eat from the table that he is serving us week after week. I give thanks to God, and I also thank you, dear brothers and sisters, for your patience and your love. Amen.